The leaves turn gold, the weather turned cold, and the story began to unfold. It's 1976, a season still alive. The legends and the memories that time could never hide. From the kickoff in September to the champions at the end, we turn the pages back again and live those days once more, my friend.
Welcome back to Pigskin Glory, football 50 years ago today, where we turn back the clock and revisit the football world exactly as fans were seeing it in 1976. Today is Monday, August 9th, 1976. NFL teams continue reshaping their rosters, former World Football League players are finding new homes in the NFL, and Mean Joe Greene had a different part of his offseason dealing with a very different kind of heat. We'll visit the comic pages with Tank McNamara, open up Football Digest, and for Sports Illustrated Monday, meet Barry Switzer and take a trip through the football world of this week's issue. Then we'll finish up at Three River Stadium, where the Philadelphia Eagles battle the two-time defending Super Bowl champion Pittsburgh Steelers. Here's what's happening in football 50 years ago today. NFL transactions. We begin with more movement around the NFL as training camps and preseason roster battles continue. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers acquired linebacker Pete Barnes from the St. Louis Cardinals in exchange for defensive back Johnny Fuller. The Los Angeles Rams acquired defensive back Vivian Lee, a former Prairie View player from the New Orleans Saints, for an undisclosed draft choice. And the Chicago Bears acquired rookie cornerback Ken Downing, an Alcorn State draft choice from New Orleans. With the regular season approaching, every move brought another player closer to or further away from a piece of NFL roster. WFL Survivors. Next came a reminder that although the World Football League was dead, plenty of its players were still very much alive in professional football. The WFL had folded during the 1975 season, leaving players searching for somewhere to continue their careers. Now, some were turning up across NFL rosters, making an impact during the offseason. The story looked at several former WFL players who had found another opportunity, including Willard Harrell, formerly of the Florida Blazers. There was even a former Philadelphia Bell player making a difference. Rich Zarro, who had kicked for the Bell 2 years earlier, kicked the winning field goal for New Orleans with 9 seconds remaining against Houston. The WFL itself had disappeared, but the summer of 1976, its fingerprints could still be found throughout professional football. Mean Joe Greene. From former WFL players, we moved to one of the biggest stars in the NFL, Mean Joe Greene. The Pittsburgh Steelers defensive tackle had spent part of his offseason working around the intense heat of a steel mill. For a man accustomed to NFL training camps, even Greene discovered that standing around hot furnaces was an entirely different experience. But there was more important football issue surrounding Greene. He was coming back from a nerve problem in his shoulder that had bothered him during the previous season, affecting the strength of his arm. After an offseason spent recovering and getting an up-close look at life around a steel furnace, Greene was ready to get back to football. And with Pittsburgh entering the year as the two-time defending Super Bowl champions, Mean Joe Greene remained right at the center of the steel curtain. Tank McNamara. Sometimes the best look for football culture doesn't come from the sports section, it comes from the comics page. Today's Tank McNamara strip takes aim at those brutally long NFL training camps of the era. One fan remarks that it's hard to believe training camp has already been going on for 3 weeks. Another looks around at the summer weather and says it just doesn't seem like the right conditions for football, while lying exhausted near a sign informing him that Gatorade is still 2 miles away. In an era of week-long camps, 2-a-day practices, and lengthy preseason schedules, the joke probably hit close to home for a lot of NFL players. Football Digest. Then we opened up our July and August 1976 issue of Football Digest. For today's selection, training camps, nonsense often relieves the boredom. This one contained what happened when NFL players had spent just a little too much time together during those long summer camps. Rayfield Wright remembered his rookie camp with Dallas in 1967 when veterans including Don Meredith, Dan Reeves, and Pete Kent decided to wake the rookies in spectacular fashion. There were stories of players moving clocks to make teammates think they were late, rookie initiation traditions, and the usual collection of practical jokes. The Raiders even held serious competitions in bowling, shuffleboard, and air hockey, with cheating apparently considered part of the fun. Others found quieter ways to pass the time. O.J. Simpson spent time playing cards at Buffalo's camp. George Bueller built model airplanes. Kelvin Corver spent time around dogs at a nearby ranch. And Green Bay linebacker Gary Weaver brought a sewing machine to training camp to make clothes. Then, of course, there were those advertisements. You could mail away for NFL mugs and steins, official team metal wastebasket, information promised you to be taller, or even NFL double bell alarm clock. The stories tell us about football in 1976. Sometimes the ads tell us just as much about 1976 itself. Sports Illustrated Monday. And because it's Monday in 1976, it's time for Sports Illustrated. The August 9th issue featured Olympic decathlon champion Bruce Jenner on the cover, but there was plenty of football inside. The major football feature was boomingest Sooner of them all, Ray Kennedy's lengthy profile on Oklahoma head coach Barry Switzer. Switzer entered the 1976 season having gone 10-1, 11-0, and 11-1 in the first 3 seasons as Oklahoma's head coach, with the Sooners claiming consecutive national championships. But the article wasn't simply about his record. It followed the larger-than-life Switzer through recruiting, fishing trips, speaking engagements, and life as one of college football's most recognizable coaches. Elsewhere in the issue, Lunch with Woody, Ohio State Woody Hayes, coach, turned the Big Ten kickoff luncheon into an event when he blasted cheating in college football and referred directly to Michigan State's recruiting violations. New Michigan State coach Darryl Rogers responded, "I've just met Woody Hayes, and I don't think I'm going to like either one." Things reportedly became even livelier when Hayes went after a Michigan State journalist who told him his newspaper was preparing a story about alleged violations at Ohio State. And naturally, Ohio State was scheduled to open the season against Michigan State. There was also a wonderfully 1976 story involving the new Meadowlands Sports Complex, future home of the New York Giants. Promoters planned to release pigeons from the Empire State Building to demonstrate how close the Meadowlands really was to New York City. One test pigeon made the trip in 5 minutes, 40 seconds. Drivers stuck in New York traffic probably weren't impressed. And that issue's weekly roundup gave readers results from the first week of the NFL exhibition games, as well as all 28 teams, including the new Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Seattle Seahawks, began their journey toward the 1976 regular season. That's what America was reading in Sports Illustrated this week, 50 years ago. Eagles 17, Steelers 14, and finally, we head to Three River Stadium. The two-time defending Super Bowl champion Pittsburgh Steelers were already well into their summer schedule. This week, week 2 of the NFL's preseason and Pittsburgh's third exhibition game overall, counting its annual matchup with the College All-Stars, and early on the Steelers looked ready to take control. Terry Bradshaw connected with John McMacken for a 14-yard touchdown, and Roy Gerella added a 27-yard field goal as Pittsburgh took a 10-0 halftime lead. Philadelphia began fighting back in the third quarter. Mike Barilla found Charlie Smith for a 12-yard touchdown, cutting Pittsburgh's lead to 10-7. The Steelers responded when Reggie Garrett scored on a 2-yard run, but the Eagles weren't finished. Barilla helped put together the deciding drive, including a 38-yard completion to Reggie Jones. Then he connected with Don Carmichael for another 38 yards, this one for touchdown. Philadelphia had erased Pittsburgh's early lead and knocked off the defending champions 17-14. And that's the football world for Monday, August 9th, 1976. If you've liked what you've seen, be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and join us again as Pigskin Glory Football 50 years ago today continues its journey through the 1976 football season.